Hello and welcome to another episode where we attempt to fall asleep, but we succeed because we are being guided by a very skilled person. If you haven't seen the last video, I suggest you watch it before this one. Most likely you will fall asleep, but this is the cost of business, right? Make sure you're laying down. Make sure you are not driving a vehicle, unless it is the vehicle of your life, the vehicle of your emotions, the vehicle of your successes. Make sure you take the wheel of this one, but take your hand off a physical wheel. Yes? We don't want you falling asleep on the 405 South. Good. Today we are going to be reading the tale of Nur al-Din Ali and his son. Let's begin. O Commander of the Faithful, that in times of yore the land of Egypt was ruled by a sultan endowed with justice and generosity, one who loved the pious poor and accompanied with the ulema and learned men. And he had a wazir, a wise and experienced, well-versed in affairs and in the art of government. This minister, who was a very old man, had 2 sons, and they were 2 moons. Never man saw the like of them for beauty and grace. The elder called Shams al-Din Muhammad, and the younger Nur al-Din Ali. But the younger excelled the elder in seamlessness and pleasing semblance, so that folk heard his fame in far countries, and men flocked to Egypt for the purpose of seeing him. In course of time, their father, the wazir, died and was deeply regretted and mourned by the sultan, who sent for his 2 sons and, investing them with dresses of honor, said to them, "Let not your hearts be troubled, for ye shall stand in your father's stead and be joint ministers of Egypt. Don't worry, your daddy died, you will be famous." And At this they rejoiced and kissed the ground before him and performed the ceremonial mourning for their father during a full month, after which time they entered upon the wazirat, and the power passed into their hands as it had been in the hands of their father, each doing duty for a week at a time. They lived under the same roof, and their word was one. And whenever the sultan decided to travel, they took it by turns to be in attendance on him. It fortuned one night that the sultan purposed setting out on a journey next morning, and the elder, whose turn it was to accompany him, was sitting conversing with his brother and said to him, "O my brother, it is my wish that we both marry, I and thou, 2 sisters, and go into our wives on one and the same night." I like his way of thinking. "Do, O my brother, as thou desirest," the younger replied, "for right is thy recking, and surely I will comply with thee in whatso thou sayest." So they agreed upon this, and quoth Shams al-Din, "If Allah decrees that we marry 2 damsels and go in them on the same night, and they shall conceive on their bride nights, and bear children to us on the same day, and by Allah's will, thy wife bear thee a son, and my wife bear me a daughter, let us wed them either to other, ya haram, for they will be cousins." Habibi, this is called incest. So, quoth Nur al-Din, "O my brother, Shams al-Din, what dower wilt thou require from my son for thy daughter?" Shams al-Din says, "I will take 3,000 dinars and 3 pleasure gardens and 3 farms, and it would not be seemly that the youth make contract for less than this." When Nur al-Din heard such demand, he said, "What manner of dower is this thou wildest impose upon my son? Wottest thou not that we are not brothers, and both by Allah's grace wazirs and equal in office? It behoveth thee to offer thy daughter to my son without marriage settlement, or, if one need be, it should represent a mere nominal value by way of show of the world. For thou knowest that the masculine is worthier than the feminine, and my son is a male, and our memory will be preserved by him, not by thy daughter. But what, said Shams al-Din, is she to have? And Nur al-Din continued, through her we shall not be remembered among the emirs of the earth. But I see thou wouldest do with me according to the saying, and thou wouldst bluff off a buyer, ask him high price and higher, or as did a man who, they say, went to a friend and asked something of him being in necessity, and was answered, Bismillah, in the name of Allah, I will do all what thou requirest, but come tomorrow, whereupon the other replied in this verse, when he who is asked a favor says, tomorrow, the wise man wots 'tis vain to beg or borrow. That's cute. Shams al-Din says, Basta, I see the fail in respect to me by making thy son more account than my daughter. And 'tis plain that thine understanding is of the meanest, and that thou lackest manners. Okay, so he has head on his shoulders. Thou remindest me of thy partnership in the Wazirat, when I admitted thee to share with me only in pity for thee, and not wishing to mortify thee, and that thou mightest help me as a manner of assistant. But since thou talkest on this wise, by Allah, I will never marry my daughter to thy son, no, not for her weight in gold. When Nur al-Din heard his brother's words, he waxed wroth and said, I too, I will never marry my son to thy daughter, no, not to keep from my lips the cup of death. Shams al-Din replied, I would not accept him as a husband for her, and he is not worth a paring for her nail. Were I not about to travel, I would make an example of thee. However, when I return, thou shalt see, and I will show thee how I can assert my dignity and vindicate my honor. But Allah doeth whatso He willeth. When Nur al-Din heard this speech from his brother, he was filled with fury and lost his wits for rage. But he hid what he felt and held his peace. And each of the brothers passed the night in a place far apart, wild with wrath against the other. As soon as morning dawned, the Sultan fared forth in the state and crossed over from Cairo to Giza and made for the pyramids, accompanied by the Wazir Shams al-Din, whose turn of duty it was, while his brother Nur al-Din, who passed the night in sore rage, rose with the light and prayed the dawn prayer. Then he betook himself to his treasury and, taking a small pair of saddlebags, filled them with gold, and he called to mind his brother's threats at the contempt wherewith he had treated him, and he repeated these couplets: Travel, and thou shalt find new friends for all the ones left behind. Toil, for the sweets of human life by toil and moil are found. The stay at home no honor wins, nor aught attains but want. So leave thy place of birth and wander all around the world. All the world around, not all around the world. I've seen, and very oft I've seen, how standing water stinks, and only flowing sweetens it, and trotting makes it sound. And mere the moon forever full, and near to wax or wane, man would not strain his watchful eyes to see its gladsome round. Except the lions leave his lair, he near would fall his game. Except the arrow leave the bow, near had it reach its bound. Gold dust is dust, the while it lies untravelled in the vine, and aloes wood mere fuel is upon its native ground, and gold shall win his highest worth when from his goal on gold. When aloes sent to foreign parts grows costlier than gold. When he ended his verse, so he was just singing to himself, saying poems because he's mad at his brother. When I'm mad at my brother, I send him a text. But this guy is going to say poems. When he ended his verse, he bade one of his pages saddle him his Nubian mare mule with her padded cell. Now she was a dapple grey, with ears like a reed pens, and legs like columns, and the back high and strong as a dome builded on pillars. Her saddle was of gold cloth, and her stirrups of Indian steel, and her housing of Ispahan velvet. What the hell is Ispahan? She had trappings which would serve the Chosroes. What is Chosroes? And she was like a bride adorned for her wedding night. Moreover, he bade lay on her back a piece of silk for a seat, and the prayer carpet under, which were his saddlebags. So this is his beautiful horse. When this was done, he said to his pages and slaves, I purpose going forth pleasuring outside the city on the road of Kalyub town, and I shall lie 3 nights abroad. So let none of you follow me, for there is something straiteneth my breast. Then he mounted the mule in haste, and taking with him some provant for the way, set out from Cairo, and faced the open and uncultivated country lying around it. About noontide he entered Bilbai's city, where he dismounted and stayed a while to rest himself and his mule, and ate some of his victual. He bought at Bilbai's all he wanted for himself, and forage for his mule, and then fared on the way of the waste. Towards nightfall he entered a town called Saadiyya, where he alighted and took out somewhat of his viactium and ate. Then he spread his strip of silk on the sand, and set the saddlebags under his bed, and slept in the open air. For he was still overcome with anger. Oh yeah, why not say poems? When morning dawned, he mounted and rode onward till he reached the holy city, Jerusalem, and thence he made Aleppo, where he dismounted at one of the caravanserais, and abode 3 days to rest himself and the mule, and to smell the air. If you're traveling by horse, you're telling me you don't have enough time to smell the air? Going from Jerusalem to Aleppo to Cairo, this take a lot of time by car. Imagine by horse. Then, being determined to travel afar, and Allah having written safety in his fate, he set out again, wending without wotting whither he was going. And having fallen in with certain couriers, he stinted not travelling till he had reached Bassora city, albeit he knew not what the place was. It was dark night when he alighted at the Khan, so he spread out his prayer carpet, and took down the saddlebags from the back of the mule, and gave her with her furniture in charge of the doorkeeper, that he might walk her about. The man took her and did as he was bid. Now it so happened that the Wazir of Bassora, a man shot in years, was sitting at the lattice window of his palace opposite the Khan, and he saw the porter walking the mule up and down. He was struck by her trappings of price, and thought her a nice beast fit for the riding of wazirs or even of royalties. So he saw the horse, and he was like, this is a beautiful horse. And the more he looked, the more he was perplexed, till at last he said to one of his pages, Bring hither yon doorkeeper. The page went and returned to the wazir with the porter, who kissed the ground between his hands. And the minister asked him, Who is the owner of yonder mule and what manner of man is he? And he answered, O my lord, the owner of this mule is a comely young man of pleasant manners, withal grave and dignified, and doubtless one of the sons of the merchants. When the wazir heard the doorkeeper's words, he arose forthright, and mounting his horse, rode to the Khan and went in to Nur al-Din, who, seeing the minister making towards him, rose to his feet and advanced to meet him and saluted him. The wazir welcomed him to Basora, and dismounting, embraced him and made him sit down by his side and said, O my son, whence comest thou, and what dost thou seek? O my lord, Nur al-Din replied, I have come from Cairo city, of which my father was whilom wazir, but he has been removed to the grace of Allah. And he informed him of all that he had befallen him from the beginning to end, adding, I am resolved to never return home before I have seen all of the cities and countries of the world. That's going to take you a while, Habibi, on horse. When the wazir heard this, he said to him, O my son, hearken not the voice of passion, lest it cast thee into the pit. For indeed many regions be waste places, and I fear for thee to turn of time. I fear for thee the turns of time, so take forever. Then he let load of saddlebags and the silk and prayer carpets on the mule, and carried Nur al-Din to his own house, where he lodged him in a pleasant place, and entreated him honorably, and made much of him, for he inclined to love him with exceeding love. After a while he said to him, O my son, here am I left a man in years and have no male children, but Allah has blessed me with a daughter who evens thee in beauty, and I have rejected all her many suitors, men of rank and substance. But affection for thee has entered into my heart. Say me, then, will thou be to her a husband? If thou accept this, I will go up with thee to the Sultan of Basora, and I will tell him that thou art my nephew, the son of my brother, and bring thee to the appointed wazir in my place, that I may keep the house for. By Allah, O my son, I am stricken in years and aweary. He want him to marry his daughter. You just met the guy. You want him to marry your daughter. When Nur al-Din heard the wazir's words, he bowed his head in modesty and said, To hear is to obey. At this the wazir rejoiced, and bade his servants to prepare a feast and decorate the great assembly hall, wherein they were wont to celebrate the marriages of emirs and grandees. Then he assembled his friends, and the notables, and the reign and the merchants of Basora. And when all stood before him, he said to them, I had a brother who was wazir in the land of Egypt, and Allah Almighty blessed him with 2 sons, whilst to me, as well ye wot, he has given a daughter. My brother charged me to marry my daughter to one of his sons, whereto I assented. And when my daughter was of age to marry, he sent me one of his sons, the young man now present, to whom I purpose marrying her, drawing up the contract and celebrating the night of unveiling with due ceremony. For he is nearer and dearer to me than a stranger, and after the wedding, if he please, he shall abide with me, or if he desire to travel, I will forward him and his wife to his father's home. He will forward him like an email. Hereat one and all replied, Right is thy recking. And they looked at the bridegroom, and were pleased with him. So the wazir sent for the qazi and legal witnesses, and they wrote out the marriage contract, after which the slaves perfumed the guests with incense, and served them with sherbet of sugar and sprinkled rose water on them, and all went their ways. Then the wazir bade his servants take Nur al-Din to the hammam bath, and sent him a suit of the best of his own special raiment, and napkins, and towelry, and bowls, and perfume burners, and all else that was required. After the bath, when he came out and donned the dress, he was even as the full moon on the 14th night. And he mounted his mule and stayed not. He mounted his mule and stayed not till he reached the Wazir's palace. There he dismounted and went into his minister and kissed his hands. And the Wazir bade him welcome. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day and ceased to say her permitted say. So what do we learn from this story? We learn that if you are mad at somebody, bust out some verses, start rapping, start saying poem. We learn that if you go out to travel somewhere and you have a beautiful horse, you will marry somebody's daughter because you are cute and your horse is cute. And also we learn that this is a great place to come when you want to fall asleep. So I am glad you joined me on this journey, and I am hoping you are asleep by now, because if not, we shall do something about it. I hope you have a good night. I hope you sleep well. I hope you sleep deep. And I hope to see you in the next episode. Good night.